A few odd things happen now and then on those dark, dusty, windy Arizona nights, but this is the strangest thing I've ever witnessed. We were out trying to round up a few strays and it was getting dark fast. The wind and lightning suddenly picked up and the dust was so thick you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. We had to get down off our horses as they were scared and rearing up hard. When the wind and dust calmed down, it was night, and I could see the glow of a campfire not even 50 feet from me. The wind suddenly became as calm as it had ever been. There was a man sitting at the fire and he said, "Howdy, stranger. My name is Simon, but my friends just call me Pete." Well, before I could introduce myself, he said, "I see you got one of them video cameras in your pocket. Could you just point that thing at me for a few minutes? I need to leave a message to a few folks out there." Well, for some unknown reason, I said I'd be happy to. So I rested the camera on a mesquite tree, turned the record button on, and he told his amazing story. It was already 2,000 years old.
I don't think I could ever look down at a fish on a fire without remembering some of the most special days of my life. This particular day was the third time the Lord had revealed himself to some of us since his death on the cross. On this particular day, there were 7 of us together. It was a very confusing time for all of us. First, Jesus was dead, knowing the last thing I did before his death was to deny even knowing him. Not once, but 3 times. This was one of the lowest points in my life. Then came the excitement of that Sunday morning when we found that he was no longer dead, but he had risen and lived again. Everyone was so excited. Jesus appeared to us, 10 of us in a locked room. Thomas wasn't there, but he wouldn't have believed it anyway. Then Jesus came back a week later. This time Thomas saw Jesus and believed. He saw the nail scars in his hands and touched his side. It was all so exciting, at least for everyone around me. I was quite concerned. I walked around in a bit of a stupor. I couldn't help remembering Jesus' haunting words on that night of his arrest. He said, "Before the cock crows, you will betray me 3 times. He knew what I was going to do. Even before I did it, he knew better than I did. It was something I thought I would never do. Yet I did deny him. It was one of the lowest points in my life. One of the stupidest things I'd ever done. And I'd participated in some pretty stupid things in my life. But in spite of all that, however, Jesus still wanted me there to share in the Passover meal with him and all the disciples. The love and understanding the Lord has is absolutely amazing. When we gathered together later that night, I didn't have any idea what to do. So I decided to do what I knew best. I said, "I'm going fishing." I guess to the others it sounded like a good idea. There's something about a little fishing to relieve your mind of what's bothering you. Or at least that's what I thought. We put the boat out, lowered the nets, and brought them back up, empty. I guess it was a bit of a metaphor for my life and the way I was feeling. For so long I felt like I had the world by the tail. I was part of a successful fishing business. And then Jesus came along and I decided to cast my lot with him for a while. It was really great too. I'd become one of the most trusted disciples. And I saw him perform so many miracles. He healed so many people. He even had me walk on water. Me, a fisherman from Galilee, walking on the water. Who would have ever guessed it? I certainly wouldn't have. Then came that awful week. Jesus was arrested. I betrayed him. And the Romans killed him. It was bad. It was really bad. Truly, it was the worst time in my entire life. Now, after all that, I didn't really know if Jesus would want to have anything to do with me anymore. I just wanted to get away from all the hubbub, and I wanted to get back to my roots. I wanted to get back what I knew best, and that was fishing. And now I couldn't even manage to do that right. Over and over again, we'd put the nets down and it'd come back empty. I think it was like all the fish in the sea had just disappeared, or I'd just forgotten how to fish. I don't know why, when we were so used to being together, but I was kind of surprised when the others wanted to come with me. I expected to be alone. I guess I thought after I betrayed the Lord that they'd want to distance themselves from me. You know, I guess the idea of going fishing was a little more appealing than I was threatening. After a long, hard night, we had nothing, and I mean nothing, not even the tiniest fish to show for it. And as daybreak came, there was a man cooking something on the fire on the beach, and we couldn't see who it was was too far away. And he hollered out to us, he said, "Cast your nets on the other side of the boat." Like, all right, whatever. So when we did, boy, did we catch the fish. There was a total of, there was 153 fish in this net, and the net didn't break. It was amazing. But all this seemed too familiar. It was kind of like one of those deja vu things. When John said, "It's the Lord," I remembered why. I remembered the time right after I first met Jesus. He used my boat to teach from, and we had another night of fishing with nothing to show for it. When he got through teaching, he had me take the boat out to deeper water and lower my nets. And I thought they'd come back empty again, but they were so full, we had to call the other boat in to bring all the fish up. And that's when I decided to go with Jesus. If he could do that, I knew he could do great things. With all these memories coming back, I knew John was right. So I hurriedly got dressed and I jumped in the water and I swam back to shore. I had to know if Jesus would forgive me and allow me to even have the smallest role in his resurrected life. When I got ashore, the others were soon behind me in the boat, and Jesus had a fire going, a lot like this one. We added some of our fish from the boat. We all sat down and we had breakfast together. Most of the guys seemed to be having a great time sharing this meal with Jesus. But me, however, I still felt an aching in my heart and an emptiness in my soul. I still didn't know how Jesus felt about me, and I really wanted to know. So after breakfast, Jesus looked straight at me, and he pointed to the fish on the fire, and he asked, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" I know, it was like he was asking me, "Simon, do you love me more than the food you fill your body with?" I wanted to have Jesus back as part of my life more than anything, and I said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And then Jesus told me to feed his lambs. I remember how he always referred to his people as sheep and lambs, but was he now asking me, the one who betrayed him, to care for his people? Was he trusting this to me? It seemed to me that this was pretty good news. It must be that Jesus forgave me if he was willing to trust me with a job like this. Then Jesus looked at me again, and he pointed at the fire again, and he asked me, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Now, this made me grow a bit concerned. The first time I thought I was forgiven, but then he was virtually asking me the same question. As I listened, though, I sensed that his question had a different meaning. This time it seemed more like, "Simon, do you love me more than your old ways of making a living?" I thought before that I had given up everything to follow Jesus. I know now that based on what I did, I still had more to give up. So I answered Jesus again. "Yes, Lord," I said, "you know that I love you." And he answered, "Tend my sheep." Again, it was like saying I had a new job. Was I to be a shepherd for Jesus, for his people? Though I was a bit concerned about being asked again, I was still excited about the possibilities for my future. But then Jesus looked at me for a third time. He pointed down the fish on the fire one more time, and he asked me once again. He said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Well, this time I was a little more than concerned. I was hurt. I'm not sure if I was more upset with Jesus for asking or myself for giving him a reason to ask. But one more time I told him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Then one more time Jesus said to me, "Feed my sheep." By this time I was totally confused. But before I could start asking any questions, Jesus went on. His language was a little bit more cryptic, but he was talking about the way that I would die, and that in my death I would glorify God. Man, it seemed to me at the time, and thinking on this only served to confirm my thoughts, that Jesus asked me if I loved him 3 times for a reason. He wanted me to know 3 things. First, he wanted me to know that he forgave me. Second, he was saying he had a job for me to do. And third, he wanted me to know that my life was not going to be an easy one. But just as he knew I would betray him, telling me what kind of death I would suffer confirmed that he knew I would always be doing the work that he had given me. Then he said to me the words I longed to hear. "Follow me." And my friends, that is just what I have done. I spent the rest of my life doing what I believe he would want me to do. No, it hasn't been easy. I even spent some time in the pokey for the sake of the gospel. I also know that I will die a hard death, but I go content in my life. I know that I have done the work of the Lord. I've shared the gospel. I've told his stories, and the stories I have shared with him to anybody who would listen. Praise God, some have listened. Others have not. But I pray that I have planted seeds, and one day they will begin to grow. So yes, when I see fish on the fire, I remember back to that special day. It will always be special because of that day I knew that the Lord forgave me. It was the day he gave this old cowboy some work to do. The taste of those fish will never be the same.